Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm talking about this really interesting pressing of the latest MxPx album, Find a Way Home, that is filled with glow-in-the-dark sand. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So MxPx released Find a Way Home back on August 25th. And when the album came out, I think there was 4 different color variants that they did of that album. One had like an alternate cover. But that's kind of all the band has ever done. They've never done any like really crazy special pressings or anything like that. And then a couple weeks ago, they announced they were releasing this really cool looking sand-filled record. And for the most part, I don't really get into any of those kind of like gimmicky record releases. Some of the other ones that have been big over the last couple of years, I know they did I think it was Friday the 13th soundtrack that they released with like fake blood on the inside of it. I know Third Man Records here in Detroit, I think a year or two back, pressed an album that had a big pot leaf on the inside of it. That was kind of cool, but like it was all really limited and really kind of expensive. And, I didn't really care enough to go stand in line for hours on end waiting for it or spending a bunch of money to get a copy of it. And even when it comes to glow-in-the-dark albums, I generally don't want to grab a copy of it. They for the most part, they don't sound all that great, even though I know it's kind of like picture discs. They're really kind of hit or miss. Some picture discs sound great, some sound terrible. Same thing with glow-in-the-dark albums. Some of them sound great, some of them sound terrible. They just kind of lack the consistency that a standard album release generally has. And since I'm a huge MxPx fan, I knew this was going to be something I was going to end up owning, regardless how much they wanted for it. And it was super expensive. And yes, it was really limited, but it was even more expensive than I really thought it was going to be. Before I saw pre-orders went up, I was thinking, maybe 60 to 80 bucks. But after tax and shipping and everything, it ended up being, I think, 120 or 125 bucks total for this album, which I know sounds crazy. And a lot of people out there are going to think it's absolutely insane to drop that kind of money on an album. And for the most part, it is. But like I said, I love this band. They're one of my favorite bands. I have everything that they have on vinyl. And, it was something I really needed to have in my collection. So these are all hand numbered. So it looks like they pressed 152 copies of this album. And generally, I don't really care about numbers or if I get a high number or a low number. But this one was really low. So I thought that was kind of cool. I got number 12 of 152. You can see up in the top corner there where it's numbered. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like I said, even though I don't generally care all that much about it, I just want to know that I'm getting a good pressing. And that was kind of the question I had about this. Is yes, it's kind of a gimmicky pressing, and glow-in-the-dark albums tend to not sound great. But this isn't a glow-in-the-dark record. Like the record itself isn't glow-in-the-dark, and that's kind of what made me, I guess, okay with getting a copy of it, is that it's just the sand on the inside of it that's glow-in-the-dark. So it shouldn't have sound issues like so many other glow-in-the-dark pressings have. The thing I noticed right away is how thick this is. So this is all hand-pressed. All these records like that are. But if you can see like just how thick that record is, that's a lot bigger or a lot thicker than even a 180 gram record would be. It's actually so thick that it didn't fit in my anti-static sleeves I generally use for albums. I had to get one of these like little bigger anti-static sleeves that I have laying around. It was the only thing I could get that would fit this record inside of it. So because the record is purple, it's really hard to see the sand inside the album, but it's only filled about halfway up with sand inside of it. And as you move this thing around, the sand actually shifts in there. So what I'll do is I'll take the light from my phone and shine it behind it so you can actually see on the camera how that sand moves in there. So going into getting this album, I had a couple of questions. First off, I wasn't really sure how this was going to sound. Secondly, I didn't know if the moving sand inside the album would cause any kind of distortion on the album. And I'm glad to say that it doesn't. There's no issues with the sound quality. I will say at the very outer edge of this album, there's some crackling in, but from what I see online with these specialty pressings, with these handmade albums, that's normal for that to happen. But largely, this sounds the exact same as any other pressing of this album that I have. I should say, I think I have 5 different copies of this album total, and this thing sounds great. So this thing's a little different than a standard glow-in-the-dark album. This isn't something you can just have a light on in your room, turn the lights off, and it'll glow. This is activated by UV light or black light. So I don't have a black light, so the only thing I could use was the sun. So I took this thing out on my front porch, and my neighbors, if they saw me, they probably thought I was crazy because I'm out there holding the record up in the air, activating it. So I probably held it up out there for probably a good minute. Took it inside my house, closed the door, turned the lights off. I put a picture up of what it looked like. It looked pretty cool the way it glowed. The gimmicky part of that, I don't really know if I'll ever really mess around with. I don't have, like I said, I don't have black lights in my house or anything like that. But it's just really kind of a cool kind of thing. I love seeing pressings like this that bands are doing now. Really, the only negative thing I can really say about it, because like I said, the sound quality sounds great. It looks really cool. It's kind of a fun, gimmicky kind of thing to pull out every once in a while. The only issue I have with it is I wish they would have used a different album cover for this release. They used just the standard Find a Way Home album cover, and they did have there was a variant that they had like a die cut out where you could like interchange the moon on there on the album cover, which was kind of cool. I wish we would have done something different for this specific release. And I'm sure there's people out there who are going to think, who the hell is going to spend $100+ on an album like that? I will say that these things, if you go on Discogs, the last time I was on there was one that's already on sale for $500. So these are, it's a gimmicky kind of release. It's really geared toward like your big super fans. But it's something that's, I think, going to retain value. Obviously, I don't really care about resale value. It's something I'll never sell. But it's something that at least I know I've got in my collection that is going to gain in value over time. And a lot of those hand pressings are the same similar way. If you go online, they typically sell for a lot of money. They look really cool. Do they always sound great? No, but from what I see of the plant that pressed this album in particular, all the hand pressings that they've done there have all sounded great. So at least I know I got a good product. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this album. If you picked up this copy of it, if you have any other kind of specialty pressings that, because there's been a bunch, especially over the last few years. I'm starting to see more and more of these hand pressings come out. I know that I think the Rolling Stones did a hand pressed copy of Let It Bleed for Record Store Day 2 years ago, I think now. This is the same way. It was like $100, and I actually think I complained about it in a video around that time also, that, who's going to spend that kind of money for a hand pressing, even though it did look cool and it sounded great. And now, of course, I have one in my collection. So, I don't know, let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.